Hello guys, this is Tim, and today I bring you a commented Viva rotation guide for the Nightmare Fractal challenge mode. After I published my 100 cm video, I was asked once again to do the same for 99. Fortunately, we had some good instabilities a few days ago, so we went and got some decent daily kills for all 3 bosses. The whole CM took us like half an hour. Since on every boss there are so many details to discuss, and not only regarding the rotation itself, I want to take another approach, commenting on the kill POVs, including pausing and rewinding. Furthermore, I will separate the 3 boss kills into 3 videos, so that people with degenerated attention spans are not offended too much. So let's start with Mama. As you can see, our Dragonhunter already put his traps on the spots where the first and the second knight would spawn, so they deal some damage as well as CC. Our warrior already has his portal in hand and will now place it. We'll run in, we'll put his banners, open the portal, come back, and we start with precasting boons. First of all, he's using the portal because if he would GG, then his banners would despawn. And secondly, we do this because we know that the kill will not be longer than 1 minute, and 1 minute is exactly the duration that the banners have. So if the warrior casts his banners beforehand and swaps them out, he can have some more CC or damaging skills instead of the banners, and the banners will last the whole fight. On another note, we let the Firebrand precast quickness and then swap back to the H. When the Soulbeast uses more stance on the precast and the Firebrand has a precast weapon with a concentration sigil that he uses while applying the quickness, then he can get up to, let's say, 50 seconds or even a minute of quickness, and he can, even with the time we need running in, upkeep quickness with only 1 additional Feel My Wrath in the fight. If you want to improve your rotation, you have to learn how to read an arc DPS log. And during this kill and the other 2 as well, I will show you some little details in them. So here I have the Mama log up. I will go to player summary and to graph. And if you only look at, yeah, well, this is a bug. This of course is phase 1, 2, 3 and 4. If you go to phase 1, then you see that you actually can't see R3, double R3. But if you go to full fight, then you can see that I used it a tiny bit before the phase started. When you see the blue field, this is the whole phase 1. And this is a little detail to get some more damage on Viva. Well, on any class for that matter, but on Viva in this case. Precasts. Precasts are just a big part of doing a lot of damage. I will show you the Quantum Strike precast in the PoE as well. You can see that Mama still has her invulnerability buff. And now compare the buff to when I press the skill. Now I press the skill even though the buff is still there. And now it's gone, and I already casted it. Of course, this precast can go wrong, and it did go wrong for me a lot of times, but at some point you just get used to the timings. It's just muscle memory, like with every rotation. In this case, you just have to keep an eye on the invulnerability buff. I get asked a lot why and when to use Unravel. Basically, you want to use Unravel if the phases are pretty short, because if you see, now my attunement go on a cooldown, and I would have to wait some seconds to swap once again to fire. But if I would wait those seconds, then the phase of Mama would already be over. So to instantly swap to double fire, you can press Unravel and get access to your skills. Even though I used fire 4 in the first phase during the Unravel rotation, it was still too late. You can see the first part is still in the first phase, but the hit itself is not. And you can check that if you go to the phase you want to look at, damage distribution, and you can see 0 damage on Ring of Fire. At this point we should talk a little bit more generally about skills. For example, it is important to know when your skill actually hits. In case of Quantum Strike and most other skills, they hit at the end of the cast time. Unlike Updraft hits at the start of the cast time. Let me demonstrate. So basically, if you cast Quantum Strike, hit is now. If you use Updraft, it hits when I click it. Now. And you see some weird back jump animation. As a result, most skills that work like Quantum Strike you are actually able to precast. On the other hand, Updraft you cannot precast, and this really is a pity because it is used for lots of bosses since it's dealing 332 breakbar damage, which is quite a lot. And even the Weavers got to contribute some of the CC. On the subject of CC, we don't use CC consumables at all to break any bars in this fight. In my opinion, it's fine to use CC toys and pucks, but when you are on a static, the only place they should be used is on the second boss of 100 cm to destroy the clones. Else you're basically just too lazy to work out the proper team coordination of your CC, which adds another layer of difficulty to the fight. I know there are people who say, if you can use CC toys, you definitely should use them. And although I don't agree, I think there is no shame in admitting being a garbage player. Another important thing to know is what kind of damage your skill does. Is it an insta-hit or is it a damage over time skill? So just let me show on the golem how some of your most important skills work. First of all, the skill you always want to precast and not cast inside the phase is your glyph. And only now at the end of the cast the skill starts to deal damage for a duration of 9 seconds in total. So next up we look at Ride the Lightning, which is AA4, and it's an instacast, only one hit. And Quantum Strike has some initial hits but does damage over time as well. That's about it. Next up is Pyro Vortex, Fire Air 3. Same thing, it has some initial hits and some consecutive ones. Next up is Flame Uprising. It's a skill that in logs has a lot of damage mostly. If you go to log, check target summary, Mama, damage taken. Then you can see 140k damage overall she only took by Flame Uprising. If you check your damage distribution, you can see that Flame Uprising is even 10% of your whole damage. This might differ from boss to boss, but basically Flame Uprising is a lot of damage. You can compare it to the old lava font when stuff still was a thing. And it kind of works like lava font as well. So Flame Uprising has an initial hit and 4 more ticks over 4 seconds, which means that the whole damage is done only after 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So fire 3, 4, and 5 are insta hits. This means if you have a really short phase, you want to get out the skills that do damage over time first and cast your instant hit skills afterwards, so that all the consecutive hits of the damage over time skills actually hit the enemy before the phase is over. We only need one more thing to understand what the, in quotation marks, best Unravel rotation might be. We have to look at the damage of the single skills. In this case I want to focus on the fire skills in double fire, fire grab, cauterizing strike and ring of fire. In relative comparison, fire grab is the highest hitting skill, followed by cauterizing strike and then ring of fire. And in this order you want to cast the double fire skills. As you saw in phase 1, my ring of fire was too late because the phase was over too fast. And with these priority assumptions, the Unravel rotation, the optimal Unravel rotation, falls into place by itself. If you start in double air, you cast Quantum Strike first, of course. Then you swap to fire air. And because Flame Uprising is the longer over time skill than Pyro Vortex, you cast this one first, because when you cast Pyro Vortex, one of the 4 consecutive takes of Flame Uprising can already take when you cast Pyro Vortex. And when you've casted Pyro Vortex, while you cast Fire Grab, you get another tick of Flame Uprising and some other ticks of Pyro Vortex. And you cast Fire Grab before Cauterizing Strike and Ring of Fire first, so in case the phase ended here, you would have casted all your important skills beforehand. Sometimes I swap those 2 skills a bit around. If you cast Pyro Vortex before Flame Uprising, it's suboptimal, but it feels pretty good to be able to double press 3 on Quantum Strike and once again 3 for Pyro Vortex. So just do whatever feels better for you. Additionally, you can swap around the double fire skills in the following order. This situation might arise on Syx phase 1, Scorvold phase 1 and Arta phase 1. But mostly on Syx and Arta phase 1 because the break bar doesn't appear immediately. If you are about to cast either of those 3 skills in Fire, look at the break bar. If it's broken already, you should do the standard Fire 5, 3 and then 4. But if the break bar is not broken yet, you should do the opposite order, Fire 4, 3 and 5. This way you give the higher damage dealing skills a chance to hit the boss with the modifiers of the Exposed debuff, the Impact Sigil or Tempest defense. Let's get back to the fight. Now we will do our boon precast. On Weaver you will lay down a fire field and blast 3 times. After that, equip your staff to prepare for your Meteor Shower precast, which I will show in a second. Cast your FGS and take Mistlock. Cast your FGS a bit to the side so that the Soulbeast can pick it up without any of the other players stealing it while they try to get the Mistlock. Run in with FGS 3. You see people portaling in. The thing is, they can, but at least one player has to run in to make Mama spawn. What I will do now is the Meteor Shower precast. One important premise to understand is that when you get in combat, you cannot swap your weapons anymore, but if you cast a skill related to one weapon and swap it out for another one, then the skill of the first weapon will channel until the very end. Luckily for Weaver, we have the very damage heavy skill called Meteor Shower, which is star 5 in Fire Attunement. This precast is basically free damage, so it's definitely recommended if you want to maximize your Weaver damage potential. So how do you do it? Well, either swap the weapons like I do directly out of the inventory, or use a second gear template. The newly added weapon swap for the Elementalist sadly doesn't work because you cancel your Meteor Shower if you use the weapon swap key. So after I run in, I instantly cast the Meteor Shower and swap to Sword and Dagger. And attune double to air so that I have the attunements off cooldown when the first phase starts. At the same time, I have precasted my Elements of Rage to start with an additional damage modifier. Maybe you're asking why I didn't precast FGS 5 here as well, but instead dropped it after whirling into the arena with FGS 3. The problem is that you get in combat with your first hit of any skill impacting on the target. The timing here on Mama is really tight to swap from Staff to Sword Dagger because she spawns by herself and is not activated like Cyax and Ensulis. This means if you casted FGS 5 before Meteor Shower, you would already be in combat because of one FGS 5 hit before you could even swap to the Staff. To close the gap to Mama, just use Air 2 and get ready for your rotation. Air 3, FA3, FA2. I skip FA4 here because too often I manage to not click Unravel at the correct moment, and instead of doing Fire 5, I will just use Updraft, and that is a big DPS loss. One thing I want to mention as well is after I've casted my fire skills, I instantly swap back to double air because I still have my Unravel buff. This is to ensure that my attunement cooldown is done when we start the second phase. At this point, some of you maybe wondered why I didn't use my Glyph of Storms here. This has to do with another important aspect you have to consider, which is the cooldown of your skills. In case of the Glyph, it's 60 seconds. Because this skill took 45 seconds, I only can get one Glyph of Storms for the whole duration of the fight, even with Alacrity. Therefore, I have to decide when to cast it. In this skill, I cast it in the 4th phase. So let me explain my line of thought. First of all, the duration of the glyph is 9 seconds. So it wouldn't be a good idea to cast it in a phase that, as you saw, just took about 3 to 4 seconds. Secondly, if I can only cast it once, I want to have the best modifiers available at the point of where the damage of the glyph comes in. On Weaver, you have this trait, which is Bolt to the Heart, where you do 20% more damage if the health of your target is lower than 50%. Therefore, it is better to use the glyph in the 3rd phase or the 4th phase, since there is not enough time left to cast it before the 3rd phase. You should cast it in the 4th one. I will show you in a second why there actually is no time to cast it before the 3rd phase. For most people though, it's probably fine if you cast glyph before the 1st phase as well. in case your kill is, let's say, longer than 52 seconds. So now I cast my FGS, and since our first knight is dead so fast, I only can use FGS 4 and already have to precast FGS 5 for Mama. You see, I'm actually kinda late. It's not precasted, I cast it inside the phase, but still better if I would have done it 2 seconds later, for example. Now you can see that I cannot start my Unravel rotation once again yet, because my AA3 is still on cooldown, so I just use an auto attack and start my Unravel rotation now. The location of the bubble is RNG. It can spawn far away of Mama. In this case we're in luck, so usually I tank the explosion with my mist lock and heal me up afterwards, but if you can walk in to the bubble, then of course just do it. Once again I unraveled back before my buff ran out, so that I can start the third phase on double air once again. I pick up my FGS, I use FGS 4 on the knight, and now I precast FGS 5 once again. You see it still has some cooldown, but at least it's half precasted. Now I have to contribute to the CC with updraft, and once again I use my Unravel rotation. I unravel back to double air. I try to heal myself up, but I get a bit unlucky. Now you can see the whole team is looking to Mama. That ensures that no one actually pukes on another player. Nicely done. And now, until she comes, I have time to precast my glyph at the spot where I assume she will jump to. Let's take a look at the log. As I explained, I don't cast the glyph before phase 1 because the phase is way too short. I don't cast it before phase 2 because there is really no time. If you look here, I tried to precast Firestorm, but as I said earlier, I casted it inside the phase. Furthermore, in the second phase I don't have any modifiers, no exposed debuff, no tempest defense, no impact sigil, therefore the glyph would automatically have less damage if I would cast it here. Maybe there would be time to cast it before phase 3 if I would be able to pick up the FGS a little bit faster. But once again, the phase is quite short and I don't want the CC to be late as well. So only in phase 4 I have some time to cast it without having to do any CC at that moment. One last point, because of the shockwaves, some misplaced puke and Mama's hard-hitting attacks, the last phase can actually be pretty chaotic, so that it's important to burst it down as fast as possible. After casting my glyph, I try to dodge exactly into Mama's landing spot. Your goal is to get inside the inner circle, which is the last shockwave. This way you avoid getting knocked and you can do damage instantly. In the end, I unravel back to double air because of the trait called Electric Discharge, which does a tiny bit of damage. You can make use of this as a finisher if you don't have any more time to finish a single auto attack. So yeah, that concludes my commented rotation guide for Mama. I know the target audience for this video is quite small, so if you made it all the way to the end, thanks for watching and have fun with No Pain No Gain 3 days in a row.